This is Chris with Dive Zone Scuba for another technical diving tips, techniques, and trips video. In this video, we're going to discuss the rigging setup for a decompression cylinder, in this case an AL40. There are actually many different ways of rigging a deco tank like this AL40. And what I'm going to demonstrate in this video is how we rig a decompression cylinder. However, your instructor or your teammates may rig decompression cylinders in a different manner. So we recommend that you rig your decompression cylinder in the most appropriate manner for your situation. Alright, so what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about how to rig a tank for deco for technical diving. And here we have a typical aluminum AL40 tank that we're going to be using. And it is a DIN valve here. And we also have the color-coded valve handle here that we're going to be using on this tank. Alright, so some of the things that we're going to need is we're going to need 2 bolt snaps here and here. We're going to need 2 of these 1-inch tri-glides, and we're going to need about 36 inches of 1-inch webbing. We're also going to use 2 different retaining bands. These are silicone retaining bands. They have a little nub on there. And also we're going to use a hose clamp. You can also use different types of tank bands, cam bands, but what we're going to do is we're going to use a hose clamp in this case. If you do use a hose clamp, what it means is you will generally have to have a socket tool, a socket driver, in order to do this. All right, so we're going to start assembling. The tank. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to prepare the AL40 deco tank with the rigging kit. And I'm going to take my rigging kit and have the 2 ends, the nose clip and then also the tail clip. And this has been prepared by folding over the webbing here and then pulling it through the tri-glide on the top, and then also making a loop with the tri-glide on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to use this in conjunction with the hose clamp, and I'm going to feed this over. And this is somewhat important as to how you orient this. And what we're going to do is we're going to feed this down here and then put the loop over the top of the nose. Alright, so I'm going to work this down, and I'm going to align the webbing. This is going to be a left-hand carry tank, and I'm going to align the webbing with the opening in the valve. And I'm going to take my hose clamp. I'm using a hose clamp in this case, not a cam band. And I'm going to take my nut driver and I'm going to tighten it down very good. Screwdriver does not work well for this. A nut driver works much better. And I've got this whole thing positioned so that the hose clamp is just above the bolt snap here. So I now have the nose clip here, bolt snap here, and the tail bolt snap down here. Now, the positioning of this is somewhat of a matter of opinion or preference. I have mine mounted about where the crown of the tank is. Some people like it up higher, some people like it down lower, whatever your preference is, but it needs to be somewhere here in this vicinity. Also, the length of your webbing here can also be an important factor depending upon how long your torso is. If you have this too far down, what happens is there's a tendency for the bottom of the tank to get on the inside of your leg and interfere with you swimming. But if you've got it further up, then the tank is on the outside of your leg and it doesn't interfere with you. All right, so I've got my rigging kit on here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my retaining bands. I'm going to put my retaining bands down on this. And again, there's some personal preference involved here. I'm going to put this below the hose clamp, and I'm going to have the little nub that I can grab from this silicone thing. I'm going to have that on the left hand side. I'm going to take my second one and put that around there, and this one I'm going to put about here. And again, there's some personal preference involved as to the height of what you want to have here. Alright, so this would be the beer tank with no regulator, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my regulator on. This is an Atomic Z2. I like this particular regulator because it has a turret. That's not to say that there aren't other regulators that have a turret, but I really like the way the Atomic second stages breathe. So we're going to have our regulator that we're going to put on here. The second stage, aside of having the turret, also has a pressure gauge here, and this is a 6-inch high pressure hose, and this is a piece of bungee that is attached to the bottom of the high pressure hose that goes over the top of the pressure gauge so that you can see what the pressure is. Alright, so sometimes what you have to do is you have to push this away. You have to push the gauge out of the way a little bit in order to get the DIN fitting, the DIN wheel on there, and I'm going to screw this in. And one of the things that about this is about using the DIN here is it's not really fully seated. You can see you can twist back and forth. It's not fully seated until you pressurize it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pressurize this to make it easier to put the rest of this in. So I'm just going to crack the valve, and I'm going to turn the gauge back. Okay, so now since it's pressurized, even though the tank valve's off, it's not going to move. So what I want to do is I want to take the hose, and again, this is one of these personal preference things. Some people like the regulator and the hose to be down here like that, and they think that their arm protects the regulator. That's fine. That's their personal preference. What I like to do is I like to have it a little higher up, and in fact, I like to secure the mouthpiece with just a typical octo holder, and then I like to put the hose in there like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put the hose through the top. Make sure that's not folded over, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom. Okay, so that's the way that I personally prefer to have the rig stowed. I think it's much more secure with the octo holder. Even if this comes out, it will still be held by the octo holder. But what some other people like to do that don't use an octo holder is when they do it, they will actually have the regulator down here like this more, and then they'll use the retaining band to try to hold the regulator in place. So whichever one you prefer, that's your call. But we prefer having the extra security of the octo holder for our mouthpiece. Alright, so I'm going to put this thing back like this. Okay, and put this back in here. Some regulators you can't do this as well because the gap between here is a different dimension. It's not as compatible with trying to do what we're doing here right now, but that's fine. Alright, so here's what the complete deco tank setup looks like, and we're ready to go to do our diving with this. This is Chris with Dive Zone Scuba. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.